Welcome back, everybody. We're now ready to attack the underside properly. I've steam washed it, but it doesn't really make it look any better. It's still very much a mess. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out these set screws here and let off that oil pipe, and then we'll take off the nuts on the end caps to allow the conrods up. And while we're at it, we might as well take off these nuts here and take off the bridging pieces. Now it takes a special tool to do that, so that's something for you to look forward to. You can see that I got all the oil pipes off without any difficulty really. Similar with the end caps, got them off, no problem. In fact, what has happened with this engine is that nothing has given any bother really, despite the fact that it's in such an atrocious condition. All the nuts have come off without any bother at all. You'll remember that the water rails, which normally do give a lot of hassle, literally sprung up without very much bother at all. So I was really quite optimistic whenever it came down to have a look at the crankshaft. I thought that there was a reasonable chance that the crankshaft would be okay. But whenever we actually get down there and have a look, you'll see here that the crank pins are not in great shape at all, really. You can see up in here that they are not exactly pristine. Now, in order to get the crankshaft out, we have to remove these bridging pieces here. And we have a special tool for doing that. But the special tool will only go in if the crankshaft pins are in a particular location. This one here, for example, there's a good chance that the puller will go in there, no bother. But this one here, not so. So it really is essential that we can rotate the crankshaft before we can get it out. And as you know, the block is completely seized, so we need to get the block off before we can go on to that stage. Now, again, the end caps come off the conrods, no problem. But whenever we look at the shells, this one's a better example, there's really quite a lot of brown on there. So this engine has suffered problems, or was about to suffer problems, over and beyond being underwater. The shells are not too bad, but certainly this engine has done a bit of work. And these are the lower shells. The upper shells in the conrods themselves will show more work. I have a strong suspicion, as I said before, that this engine has been run after it has been tucked up out of the water. So the salt water and the oil has emulsified and has gone all throughout the engine. So we can press ahead now, and we'll pull off the blocks and then lower the engine back down into this orientation and pull off the bridging pieces and go on to getting the crankshaft out. I'm not very optimistic about its condition at all. The temptation here is to put a strap on this lifting eye and lift the whole lot up. But I hope you can guess what will happen if I do that. I'm going to bend this stud here. I may even break it. So I had the idea of making this. It's just a piece of 1/2 inch BSF threaded up into that nut with this large surface here. So what I do is I take out one of the studs and I screw this in instead. Screw it in fairly tight. So once the pull comes up here on this large surface here protects this from bending. It works quite well. So we'll do that now. we'll get the forklift and we lift this up. I'm pretty confident that the whole block and con rods and everything will come up and leave everything else behind. We can then proceed to push the pistons out with a high pressure press.
Oh dear, look at this mess. I really didn't expect it to be this bad. The poor cam followers really have had it. I don't see any point in even trying to save them. They're too far gone. And you can see the crankshaft as well is in very bad condition. The crankshaft doesn't pass through bearings, it passes through brass bushes set into the crankcase itself. Under normal circumstances, pushing the camshaft out is really quite difficult, and you need a special pusher to do that. Con rods, more or less as you would expect. The bottom of the block is not too bad. It's wonderful how cast iron is inclined to rust much less than mild steel. You can see the bolts there on the end caps are not too bad at all. So we might be able to save those con rods, but we have lots anyway. There you can see the water pump drive. We might be able to extract that. I'm not too sure. So all in all, it really is pretty grim. Okay, here's the end plate. Now the end plate is salvageable, but that particular one is of limited interest because it wouldn't suit a marine engine because it's not flanged at the outside there. That's obviously out of a bus. So again, it's not really worth the bother trying to take it off. It's quite a lot of work getting all those nuts out. So I think we'll give that a...
Not all fairy stories have a happy ending, I'm afraid. At least I've ended up with quite a quantity of parts that I've been able to use. The crankshaft, the crankcase itself, as I said, will probably be going to scrap unless there's somebody out there who's particularly enthusiastic and keen to see it restored. It could be done, but from where I'm standing, I don't think I can't justify it. I think I'll press ahead now and I'll shoot a separate video on extracting the front pulley, because that process has nothing to do with this engine. We'd be using that same approach on any engine. I should also be able to save the church door here. The water pump drive, I'm afraid I made a hames of trying to extract it. So it'll have to stay there and go for scrap as well. I don't think there's any other parts on it that I can salvage really. So I hope you enjoyed that series of videos, and I'm really sorry that it's had to end this way, but I just can't afford to do any more work on it. Maybe the next one we tackle will have a happier ending.